Good morning, good afternoon, and good night. Today is what a conversation to be had. Relationship dynamics. The whole thing about, love is so exciting. You get to, at first it's free. It feels like, you made the choice. You get, you made to, it's a mutual agreement to, from one person, you and the other person agreeing to you guys being together, and it's amazing. You guys feel like, you're alive. You felt like you were chosen, and you have this amazing experience. But I'm talking about the experience of when you get into this dynamic and it becomes like you need to stay in this dynamic, and it feels like the love turns into obligation. And then it starts to feel like you don't have a choice over it. It feels like a duty, it feels like a chore. And I feel like so many people get locked in this scenario where now they don't feel like they have control. They don't have a sense of, freedom. They feel like they need to just keep going, just, not to offend anyone, not to bring up any potential problems, potential, sacrificing things. But I kind of wanted to just talk about it. And to be honest, it creeps in quietly. Obligation creeps in really quietly. It feels like, you start to like, oh, okay, I should be doing this. I should, be doing better. Okay, like, and you start to do things out of guilt rather than true love or true choice. And then not only does it ruin the dynamic between you guys, and you start to have arguments more, and you don't feel like you're enjoying it anymore. I just feel like it becomes a really toxic relationship dynamic, and it becomes really unhealthy. I feel like the potential signs that this is a case that you may need to assess your relationship, what you want and what you truly want to feel in a relationship, is that you start counting everything. Start being like, okay, they did this. I'm watching their behavior. Oh, they did it again. Oh, okay, okay, now he's done this. Now it's like when you're starting to hold grudges and you're starting to like hold it in this reserve rather than talking about it and feeling fulfilled about it, there is a huge problem. This is not feels it feels like you just need to hold back to kind of like keep it healthy and keep it so it doesn't go into this bubble where it bursts and it has an argument. But the truth is, this bubble still exists. It still exists, and you're just growing ever so slightly with each one. You're like, well, I won't argue about this. I won't argue about this. I won't argue about that. It just grows more, and then poof, it explodes again. You will have that argument again. It just will happen no matter what. And it just kills all authenticity. Now you start to, pretend that everything's okay. The same other person, like, feels like nothing's going on, and it doesn't feel like you can be safe. You can be yourself, like, same with the other person, right? Like, they don't feel like nothing's real, because it's just like, oh, why are you reacting differently? Why do you feel like you're holding back against me? And it's such a really unhealthy dynamic. I feel like real love is when the people choose each other daily. They get to experience things again, and they get to be like, hey, let's, do you want to do this? Do you want to do this? Do you want to do this? If emphasis on the you, like, hey, do you want to do this? Is it okay if that, reassuring, assessing things, reconfirming things, not like, I feel like so much of a problem is when people say that this thing is okay. It's not permanent. You can say that something's okay once, and then you can change your mind. That's the truth and authenticity about it, is that some days you'll feel like something's okay, and some days you'll feel like you'd never want it again, and you need to have conversations about it and feel like you're comfortable being like, oh, these are my boundaries right now. These are my boundaries. Oh, my boundaries have shifted more. My boundaries have shifted less. Like, that's just the real case of being human, is that you change, right? Every 7 years, you are like a completely different person. So if you're really in the long run and you want to be, have this healthy dynamic of, talking to someone that you feel like you can, rely on, and feel like you can give out and receive things as like, a feedback and different things, you need to establish that, hey, I'm human. I can change. And so one day I might be okay with this thing, and one day I might not, like, that authenticity is just so important to me. And I feel like it's not addressed in these kinds of situations where it's just Now you feel like it's a chore. Now you feel like, okay, I must be in this because or else they're gonna, I'm gonna lose a family. I'm gonna lose I'm gonna lose all these different things. And it's just like, no, don't look at it for that. Look at it for them only, because it was the same thing as when you first met, right? You made the choice to be like, I want to be with this person. That's it. You didn't think about the family. You didn't think about the dog. You didn't think about the money. You didn't think about anything, unless, that's different circumstances. I'm talking about healthy relation dynamics, right? You chose to be with that person on the very first day that you met them, right? And so why can't you have that same attitude when you're already in the relationship? You chose to be with that person, right? And you're being in that relationship, so you can choose to get out as well. Like, ask yourself this question: am I showing up to, not be annoying, not to be, or am I only showing up because I feel guilty, or I feel like I need to do it kind of thing, right? These are definitely signs that you need to reassess your responsibilities. I feel like there's nothing wrong with having a relationship and having responsibilities, having like a set of, trust and respect, and that kind of boundary of, is it responsibility or is it obligation? Because I feel like responsibility is kind of, it's shared between you guys, right? It should be an equal bound where you guys feel comfortable with the set of responsibilities and things that you kind of want to do for each other. That makes you comfortable. It makes you, feel like you can rely on each other, right? Those sorts of things. But when it turns into obligation, that's where it really is forced upon you. It feels like you're just doing it just because you have to, just because you don't want the arguments, you don't want the bad moments, the whatever. But what heals it is having those honest conversations. And, be prepared for those moments where it feels really tense and it feels really like, oh, I just want to yell, I just want to do this. Like, it happens, right? Because you go fight or flight in these moments like these. And same does the other person, right? It happens. But I'm telling you that these honest conversations need to be had, because if you don't, the more and more will pile up, and it will be even worse the next time you try to do it, right? So knowing, set your intentions, before you have the conversation. Be like, I want to make sure that I love you. I'm going to do all these things, da, blah, blah, da, 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 right? And set those intentions so they know, it's okay, but like, I'm just trying to improve this. I don't like when you do this. I don't like when this, and, it's 10 times better to get that truthfulness and not have like, just half-hearted actions instead. Instead of having like an actual honest conversation where you guys can just be real with each other, you're doing these things where you're like, yeah, I'm okay, yeah, it's okay, like now the other person's overthinking and they feel like they did something wrong, but they don't even know because you guys aren't talking about it, right? How can someone improve without knowing what to improve, right? So you have to understand from both perspectives. Yes, it's annoying or it's bad, whatever the case it may be with what they're doing, but having that conversation and being real and knowing that both of you can improve is just like so much more important, I feel like. So as long as you're doing that, then I feel like everything will be great. And, I wish you the best of luck. I hope everything's going well. It happens, these things will happen, but it doesn't mean the end of the world. But yeah, much love as always. I appreciate all the likes, comments, subscribes, all those things. It really helps out the channel. And I feel like I like the idea of building this positive mental health thing instead of like some of the negative things I see on YouTube. It's really, sad to see sometimes that, if you really just bloat all the trauma in one video and your YouTube videos, you get thousands of views on the internet. And instead of just being, my mission is kind of like chime into the mixture of awareness, of course, is great, but I feel like growth is 10 times more important, right? You need to have that mixture of having the awareness, but showing a path that things will get better, right? Things are, knowing that growth is not linear. You can take steps backwards, forwards, but knowing that you can do these things and knowing that you can improve in the first place is so much more healthy than just saying that I hate life, I hate these things, so that's my mission. And thank you so much for the support. So I'll see you in the next one.